Bond. James Bond.
It was a big challenge working on the Bond films for a lot of reasons. I mean, one is obviously that it is certainly the most lucrative franchise in our library, and with the exception of the Star Wars movies, I think it's the most profitable franchise that exists. And it was certainly the older films, you know, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, the Connery ones specifically, are, you know, just starting to get old.
What we wanted to do was to actually reinvestigate the Bond films, find a way of actually preserving them, and to go back to the original negatives and get as much as possible out of them. That is why we chose Lowry.
Frankly, I think it led out of work that we had done for MGM before. They had a vision of what they wanted to do with Bond. I think they knew about the condition, especially of the earlier Bonds, and saw what we've been able to recover in the past. The ability to fundamentally take years off of the life of really important movies is something that we pride ourselves on, and they've seen firsthand.
A successful film tends to get used a lot. They take it off the shelf very often, make dupes, make prints, and the more successful a film is, the more it's handled. That creates scratches, dirt, blemishes, various kinds, torn sprocket holes, sometimes torn film. The magic with what we're doing with Bond is we've got the original camera negative. What a golden opportunity, because we're able to put that on our very gentle scanners, scan this material, and capture everything out of these movies. We've got a clean room here, actually, at a level used for example, making integrated circuits. Our objective is to keep that film really clean. The last thing we want to do is add dirt to it. We're scanning at about 4 seconds per frame. 1 hour takes 100 hours. The real key on the Bond movies is we're scanning the original camera negative. So we've got to treat it with great care. We chose these scanners, the Imagica scanner, because it happens to be extremely gentle on film. And we're scanning at 4K, which means that we're scanning 4,000 by 3,000 picture elements. That is very, very high resolution, probably slightly beyond what is actually on the film. So we're capturing everything that's on that motion picture film. As we scan the film, the images land on the discs here. This is really the central brain, if you like, of the entire system. This is where all of the memory is, and it is routed on gigabit Ethernet to all of the computers downstairs, to color correction. It's all routed from here on various cables to various places. Exactly 4 years ago, we got 12 G4s, then it went up to 180, then to 300 and some, and then the G5 came along last fall. Wow, tremendous power. We put in 100 G5s and it more than doubled our capacity that we had at the time. Then we put in 500 more. So we are 8 times the power now that we had 6 months ago. We have everything connected, a gigabit Ethernet network, very, very fast, and we're moving literally terabytes of data all the time. We can store an entire movie in a case of this kind for archive purposes. These are the disks from the servers in the background. These are currently 250 gigabytes each. We have hundreds of them, obviously. We can refresh these every roughly 2 years. Just plug them into the server, copy it over to another disk, put it back in here. Good for another few years.
This suite that we're in now is called the color environment. This is where the decisions are made about the color timing and the color grading in the film. This is the first step after the film is graded on our scanners. It comes through this suite, and then this information about the color is encoded into the data, and it passes on to the rest of the production environment. This is the first chance we have to actually look at the film and make choices and to see the quality of the film. In our case, we have the privilege of working from the original camera negative. In essence, the film that we scanned was in the original camera when the movie was shot. So there's no optical generations in the film whatsoever. So in essence, we're finding details, color tonality, resolution information, and a kind of steadiness that wasn't in any of the prints or any of the release material. I started doing Dr. No first, and we assumed that Dr. No was going to be older, the film was going to be harder to restore and so forth, but we don't find that necessarily to be true. The film is still in pretty darn good shape. I was fascinated with Ursula Andress, who wouldn't be, you know. I mean, it's the classic Bond girl walking out of the water. The colors and the texture and the detail is so fantastic. They're going to see images that never had this kind of range and richness and so forth. And so it's a privilege. I could say I'm the first one to actually see these images at this level.
We have 4 project managers, young people who do one fabulous job. They see the movie through from one end to the other. They have responsibility for the quality of that film.
First off, we would load the entire movie up just to get a feel for what types of shots are in it. First, we would separate out probably indoor and outdoor because the quality is a lot different. And also a third category might be opticals, which is pretty much our nemesis because opticals are a couple generations older. So we categorize them in those 3 categories probably and choose a different parameter set for each.
Usually there's between 6 and 8 types of shots in a movie, and it's based on how much flickering there is, how much dirt there is. You might get different film stocks used, so the grain will be different from shot to shot. You want to basically tune those parameters into each specific scene. In addition, if you have an optical generation, you're bound to have a lot of flicker. It's bound to be softer. The grain is bound to be a lot higher. So again, you have to use different parameters for that. You may need different enhancement on the back end to try and bring the optical up to the level of the normal shots in terms of the sharpness.
Opticals are very dirty because you have, of course, you know, the optical itself and the image that you're processing. So there tends to be a lot more dirt. How our software works is that you'll have your image that you're looking at, and then it'll look at the 2 images on the outside, and it'll compare those 2 to see if there's anything consistent between these 2 outside images and the center image that you're actually going to repair. A lot of the problems that you see after a while tend to be the same. They reoccur a lot. So you can just look at a shot and go, okay, well, do this to it, apply this process to it. And most of the time, we're right on.
I started with the existing HD transfers. We're starting with Man with the Golden Gun. Right after the traditional Bond logo, we open up to a scene of Maud Adams laying on the beach. And because of the way that the optical is created, there were several layers of grain and dirt, which we were able to remove completely. In one particular shot, there was this strobing effect due to some fluorescent lights that were used in a ferry scene, Roger Moore sitting in a ferry. It was a pretty bad strobing effect, and we were able to remove it completely.
We identify damage, scratches, hairs. We fix them using a proprietary software. On Dr. No, we had a gate hair that was covering about 1/3 of the image. So far, that has been the toughest fix on Dr. No. You really have to start getting pretty creative.
When we run into improvements we could make to the picture, that really belongs in the hands of the content owner. The perfect example is in the movie Man with a Golden Gun. They bumped a dresser during the course of that fight sequence, and a mirror on the dresser moved just slightly, and in that mirror you could then see the entire camera crew. It happens in the split second, but it's completely obvious once you know it's there. And in today's world, people look at pictures frame by frame. That's what DVD allows them to do. And the question is, do you take that out or not? Frankly, that's a decision MGM had to make, and when you look at the DVD, you'll find out what they decided.
We try to be as true as we possibly can to what we believe the original director and cinematographer saw in their dailies when they were shooting the movie. We want it to look at a quality level just like that before it started to go through the degradation of time, handling, and multiple generations of film.
Our relationship with Lowry has been very close. We come out here several times to see what they're doing. Everything that's been done is based on approved masters that have been approved by Ian and Dan Jack. We're not trying to reinvent the films, but just to have them with more detail, more enhanced color, just a new, fresh look at the films.
We just saw our first 4K cleaned up versions of Dr. No, and they're amazing looking. It doesn't look like anything I've seen before.
And it's just blown me away because it's not the movie that I'm so used to seeing. And for the first time, I'm seeing detail that I had never seen before. You look in a room and I can see the shag of a shag rug, and all of a sudden the movie is not a movie made in the 60s, but is a movie maybe just set in the 60s. It doesn't seem like it's rooted in the time it was made, but more timeless.
My personal favorite film of the group is Goldfinger, so I can't wait to see what that looks like, bringing all this new digital technology and this amazing cleanup process that Lowry does. Everybody's going to watch this and go, this just looks great, and I feel like I'm seeing Bond like I never saw him before, and that it's a good thing, not a bad thing.